So sorry about the wait in between episodes. It's been 2 weeks. I am refreshed. Took a vacation last week. Saw my brother. Saw my sister-in-law. My niece and nephew. It was wonderful seeing them all. This shirt is from my brother, which was a hand-me-down that he didn't want, but I still like it. I love it a lot. It's a great shirt. Thanks a lot, Matt. This is I also talked to my brother, and at some point we're going to do me and him talking over an episode at one point, and we're going to kind of discuss basically our thoughts for the season. So me and him are going to work that time out and what to do. But I'm looking forward to that. I think that'll be really a lot of fun having him on the podcast, and kind of sharing both of our opinions on everything, which we do generally all the time anyway. But I thought it would be fun to kind of enjoy that in a different arena, a different type of medium than we usually do, which is just kind of usually just texting back and forth about the Mets. So looking forward to that. It was a nice long trip, and coming back to see the Mets take 2 out of 3 from the Athletics, the no longer Oakland Athletics, Sacramento Athletics, was nice to see, considering the offensive struggles that the teams had. I was glad to see them take things back, look a lot better, and then as we saw in this final game, all hell broke loose late in the game, where the offense just really kicked into gear, and that was really good to see. So, without any further ado, let's get into it. Roll the music. Welcome to Mike's Mets Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Peixoto. Wonderful to see everybody again. It was a long introduction I just gave there, but it's been a lot of fun. I've enjoyed what I've been doing. In answer to somebody probably messaged me on Blue Sky, and they were asking me if I script my stuff out. I don't usually. I kind of do a more general scripting, but I keep things sort of in bullet point form. So that's why when I talk, it's more or less I'm kind of like talking out of my own like kind of train of thought. So in answer to that question, thank you. And I do appreciate the questions. If you want to reach out to me, all of my links are included. If you want to check it out, the description will have my link tree, and then of course at the end of each episode, I include the links for my Twitter account, my Blue Sky page, which I'm usually more active on Blue Sky nowadays, and then also the Spotify for the podcast as well. So please check that out. Going back to the Mets, let's talk about it. This was a pretty ugly game for the first 5 innings, with the exception of Kodak Senga, who was very efficient at the very least. There's a little bit of a caveat with what the Mets are doing in terms of their pitching, which has been exceptional. I think the best pitching staff in baseball over the first 15 or so games for everybody. We've seen electric stuff from a lot of the pitchers. Kodak Senga was not really one of those guys. He looked kind of like in the in-between period where he didn't have like that full grasp of what he usually is doing. But I thought it looked excellent in this one. The biggest thing was was command, which has always been a thing with Senga, which was him just throwing a ton of pitches. It's a lot of off-speed stuff and a lot of things not really breaking the strike zone. The Athletics, who are not a good team, I don't know if worse than the Miami Marlins. It's got to be pretty close though. I don't know. It's debatable if they're better than Marlins, but Senga had pitched against the Marlins twice. Didn't really look great against those two in those 2 starts, but in this start was extremely efficient. Didn't even throw 80 pitches in the game, and got through 7 innings. Part of it was the Athletics are just kind of a free swinging team. They like to just kind of pop balls up, and worked to Senga's advantage and the Mets' advantage in this game. Although we did not see much offense for the most part, which has been kind of the calling card of the Mets for the beginning of the season. So what we've been seeing from them is a team that doesn't hasn't really fully figured out what they're doing right now. And part of it is missing personnel. You know, they still don't have Francisco Alvarez. They still don't have Jeff McNeil back, and while I was in the middle of kind of like writing out notes from this game while I was watching it, I was writing out. I was like, Brett Beatty's making it extremely easy for Jeff McNeil to just come back and just take his job back. Like there's like zero job fear with Jeff McNeil right now of coming in and not immediately assuming his starting spot back. So both Brett Beatty and Luis Angel Acuna have not really looked up to speed until late in the game. And again, this is against a really, really, really crappy Athletics team. But it was nice to see him come through with a nice big hit, got that triple, eventually came around to score. And it was a good moment for Beatty, who has not had a lot of good moments really at all this season. He's looked wildly out of his depth. He like everything that he looked in spring training is gone. Everything that you looked at as a positive is gone the completely opposite direction. He's now more of a negative player than I think at any point in his career. He's like just really bad, and like I'm glad he got the hit, but he's still batting $139 on the season. It was also nice for Tyrone Taylor to get the triple as well. That was good to see. Taylor deserves something for what he's been doing for them, which is basically a fourth outfielder for them for most of his run with them. But I was glad to see Taylor come through with that big hit. It was an important part for him, and I don't really know what to say about those two. Nor do I know what to say about Luis Angel Acuna, who still looks pretty bad. I'm going to refer to this game as the Luis Torrens game. Luis Torrens, 3 for 4 in this game, and just keeps coming up with his hits. He's batting .333 on the season. And Torrens has always been a really good backup. I discussed this with people before, like that. I think Torrens is maybe the best backup they've had in close to 20 years. It's maybe not like let's say like it was the tandem of Travis d'Arnaud and Kevin Plawecki was a pretty good tandem, where Plawecki could always like come in with some offense and was a really solid backup to d'Arnaud and was a solid starter in case they need him to come in. So I think it was ultimately pretty good for them, but he has been, I think, a really good addition to this team since they got him last year. He's fully formed into a really great player. Mark Vientos came through late. Was only 1 for 4 in this game, but had a pair of RBIs. The big shot, of course, coming late in the game, and then scoring himself later. But he came through with the RBI double in the 9th inning. And then had walked in another run. So good to see Vientos getting some hits. That whole 9th inning was basically just garbage time, where all the Mets players who were struggling just got some very key hits. Torrens included, also had a ground rule double, and it was the people who were absent in this game really were only Juan Soto and Pete Alonso. And we probably have to start talking about Soto and what he's doing for them offensively, because the stats aren't great through the beginning part of the season. He hasn't really looked totally comfortable, and that's just kind of the way it goes with some of these guys, where they can get off the hot starts, they can't get off the hot starts, and getting off to like a lukewarm start for Soto at the beginning of this monster contract where you signed, where you're going to be a new team for 15 years. It's important that you get off on the right foot. So he hasn't gotten off to this, tragically terrible start, but he's batting 265 on the season now. He's got 1 home run, 4 RBIs. He didn't do anything in this game. He was over 3 with a walk. I'm glad he keeps getting walks. It's what's keeping his OPS basically above board right now, because what he's doing for them offensively has been otherwise negligible. He's not hitting for really any power. He's been getting doubles, but I've been looking for him to kind of get that stroke rate, and it seems like he's tinkering with it. He doesn't seem to be right where he wants to be in terms of where his bat is. He's not quite level. He's not quite at that point where you can see him really driving the ball. And it's been a little bizarre for watching him. If you've seen Soto for years, you've been this guy's a machine. Like, he's just the way he hits, and just hasn't looked totally comfortable yet. He is not like a Lindor caliber, like, slow starter. Like, there's nothing quite like close to Lindor's total ability, like, plus his awful cold starts. There's no one else like that in baseball. There's truly nobody with his overall abilities and how terrible he starts off every season. There's no one quite like Lindor. So Soto has never been like that for his career. He's gotten off to some plodding starts, but he's been mostly a decent player. And he's like Lindor, doesn't really kick it in until later in the year. And when it gets a little bit warmer out, then you start seeing the ball start to fly a little bit more. And so if people were really worried about Juan Soto, don't be. He's gotten off to a less than brilliant start, and it's not something that I would like. I would like Soto to be, I want him to be Aaron Judge. I want him to be a guy who you're like, oh god, that guy just keeps hitting it's like base hit, home run, double, getting on base at the same time. Also, I want him to be Aaron Judge. I want him to be Albert Pujols. I want him to be this incredible offensive player, and you know what he's going to be. I like betting against that. It was a terrible idea. Like, don't bet against Juan Soto because there's a very good chance that he'll hear you and then just start hitting home runs directly at you. So keep that in mind. But it's been a little dispiriting to see just where he is in terms of his place as it is right now in the season. I would like him to be a little bit hotter. Francisco Lindor, 2 for 5 in this game. I was happy to see that. Lindor has been very slowly but surely digging himself out of that early hole that he put himself in, and is looking more and more like the player that we know he can be. I don't know if Lindor is going to kind of hit that level, but it's important, particularly in this early part of the year where they're kind of dealing with players who haven't really figured out their niche and are looking like less than the 100% versions of themselves. I would say it's really important that Lindor and Soto get their act going, because we saw Pete Alonso over 3 in this game today, and this was the first over I've seen from Pete in a little while. I haven't seen Pete get off to a hot start like this since 2019. And you could probably quibble in terms of in 2022 or 2021, he got off to good starts also. I don't recall him looking this comfortable at the plate, though. And I don't recall him actively going the opposite field as much as he has been this year. It's been a real revelation in terms of his approach. He looks so much sharper and more confident. Was probably the biggest takeaway I've seen from him these last couple of weeks, is that part of it is you get off to a hot start, you're going to feel more confident, but he just looks like a different player that he was last year, and maybe the burden of the contract was really weighing on him, that he really needed to perform, and that was putting a lot of pressure on him, that he felt like he needed to be swinging for the fences and pulling the ball all the time, and because of that, it really affected his approach. It is one of those things that it's so frustrating with Pete Alonso, where I feel like for years people were saying the same thing over and over again to him, which was, stop pulling the ball so much. You will, if you go the other way, like you were when you first came up here in 2019. He hit so many opposite field home runs, and then he slowly but surely got away from that. And his approach was, particularly in 2023 and 2024, really more about, I'm just gonna I'm just going to try and pull the ball as much as I can, and it really affected his stats. He didn't really look like the same type of player that we had seen in previous years. And in 2022, I remember him being a legitimate MVP candidate for the early part of the season. I think it was the first half of the season. The Mets were doing so well, and Alonso was such a huge part of it, and it felt like he was just hitting home runs. He was driving in base runners by the truckload, and just kept coming up with these huge base hits over and over and over again. It wasn't just home runs; it was also him just driving the ball to all fields. And I hadn't seen that Alonso in so long that I actually thought that were beyond that point. And it's kind of the reason why I think people were so down on him in the offseason, which was it felt like his approach was just broken, and that he wasn't interested in kind of fixing himself, and that he wasn't listening to people. And there was something that shifted in him. I don't know if it was, if you can really pinpoint it to that home run in the wild card series that won the game for the Mets, but it does seem like a trigger moment to him where he like all of a sudden he was like, "Oh, you mean opposite field? Oh, I didn't know what you were talking about." We were like screaming at him for years, like just go the other way with it. If you do that, you're going to perform and you're going to look like Pete Alonso of old. And it is very much Alonso. You're like, yeah, that's what we were talking about for years. Just do that, and it's just you want him to be that kind of guy all the time. And I'm hoping that he continues this approach and he doesn't get too he doesn't get stuck in his other ways, and then he maybe shifts what he's thinking. I want him to be the same type of player going forward, because this is the player that he really looks like. This is the player that we all forgot about, a player that a lot of teams thought he was gone, which was this slugger who could just hit all fields and was really dangerous and was patient and was willing to, was going to be swinging out of the strike zone all the time. Was going to be looking much more like a dangerous player, and he just wasn't last year. It really was. It's been a tale of two seasons for him so far, where his entire philosophy towards hitting has done a complete 180. He looks so much better at the plate now, and it's great to see. I really love what I'm seeing from Pete Alonso, and it's you can point to a lot of people, but I think the old person you have to point to most is Pete, and I think Pete is also, and you're gonna probably look at this as a psychological thing also. I think Pete's on a revenge tour. I think this is him saying, you know what, everybody wrote me off. That's okay. Now I'm going to show you how good I am. I'm going to show you what everyone was just looking past and could have had for like a bargain contract if you just been smart enough to keep me around, but you weren't. So this is what's going to happen, and I don't know how it's going to affect any kind of long-term conversations with Pete, but I've loved what I've seen from him, and if he keeps this mentality up for the entire season, it's going to look great for him. He's going to reemerge as a legitimate MVP candidate, and if you have Lindor and you have Soto, also guys who are legitimate MVP candidates, you got three of those guys, 1, 2, 3 in your batting order, you're set. I can't wait to see what we get with Pete for the remainder of the year. But we obviously have a lot of season left, but man, what a hot start. Absolutely incredible. So as happy as I am that the Mets got the win today and pulled out the series win against the Athletics, there are troubling signs. One is that I don't know how long this pitching staff can actually keep this up right now, because they've looked great. They've also played against a lot of inferior opponents, and I'll bring up the schedule right now. And they were playing the Miami Marlins, they played the Blue Jays, they played the Marlins again, and they play the Athletics, and so you're playing four bad teams, and the Marlins are weirdly above 500 right now. I still don't know how that happened, but whatever. The Marlins have gotten off to a weirdly good start, and part of it's because the Braves are so terrible to start the year off, which is, if you're a Bet fan, yes, awesome. But it is kind of concerning that you look at the rest of the schedule and then you have okay, so now we have to play the Minnesota Twins, who are also under 500. You play the St. Louis Cardinals, who are also under 500 right now, and probably are not going to be over 500 by the time the Mets play them. Then you play the Phillies. Phillies are half a game or a game behind us. Let me just check the standings real quick. The win, Phillies lost today, so the Mets go up. Mets are in first place, 10-5. Phillies are 9-6, so we are a game up on the Phillies. So we're not going to play like a 500 opponent until next week. So we have that going on, and then I don't know how they're going to play against like a legitimate opponent. They're playing a lot of bad teams in between that period, and this is why I'm like, I look at this as they are not really equipped to play these teams if this is how the offense has been performing, and it's good to see them shut out the Athletics because that's what they're supposed to do. But I also don't know if this, four of the runs came in garbage time or in the ninth inning of a third game against the Athletics in the Athletics' ridiculous home ballpark. So I don't know if this is a possibility for them to actually play well against top 500 teams. The only team they played that was, in kind of a decent place this season was the Houston Astros. The Astros, after that game, they're 7-8. So the Mets haven't been playing particularly good competition, and they're not going to be playing really good competition until the Phillies series. And then they have to play 4 against the Nationals, and then 2 more against the Diamondbacks to finish out the month. And the Diamondbacks, that's going to be actually a legitimate series. That's going to be where I don't know if they're going to win the series against Philly or Arizona. And then I think they're going to split that series against Washington. So I had said this before. I expected them to be 20-11 by the end of April. They played 31 games through March and April, and expecting them to probably win every series with the exception of the Philly series and the National series, and then splitting the Washington series. They should be at 20-11, but it's a 20-11 that's a little bit it misconstrues what their actual abilities are, because their offense has been just terrible. The Mets are right now plus 20, but that's because their pitching staff has been terrific in terms of runs allowed. I mean, so runs scored 61, runs allowed 41. That's an absurd figure that only the Chicago Cubs, who are at plus 41, San Diego Padres, who are at plus 30, and the San Francisco Giants, who are at plus 23, have a better record than that. Phillies are plus 7, so they're nowhere near as good. It's all based on a pitching staff that's been absolutely electric. The fewest runs allowed in the National League this year so far, even better than the San Diego Padres, who have been surprisingly good. The Dodgers have not been good, and part of it is the Dodgers have been playing tougher competition. But it's you look at these pitching staff, and you're like, how are the Mets doing this in terms of it? And it's been really good bullpen. It's been a bullpen that's been doing multiple inning performances for the entire season, which has been huge. They could not be where they have been if they don't have Brasbin, Max Kranick, and Jose Budo. All 3 of those guys have played giant roles for them, but also AJ Minter getting back into pitching more into form and looking more like the AJ Minter of old. The important part of it. And then you have the Edwin Diaz factor into it, and setting aside Diaz's terrible performance in the game against the Athletics, where he almost blew the lead, Diaz has been pretty good for them overall, but there's certainly times for them to look better. I would say that this is a team that they are not totally equipped right now to take on these better teams, and they will at least have reinforcements coming in with Sean Manaea eventually, and then Francisco Alvarez. They're expecting Alvarez and McNeil to be back soon, relatively soon anyway. So McNeil and Alvarez both played rehab games on Friday night and looked good in the performances. McNeil was 1 for 2 with a single and a walk scored. Alvarez was 0 for 3 with a walk and a run in the game. He was that was a second rehab game. He was 1 for 3 with a single in his first game. So both those guys are getting back into the swing of things, literally, and having them back in this lineup will be just a huge game changer. There was also the Jose Siri situation that happened earlier in this game where Siri dove for a fly ball to shallow center, missed it, and came up. It was kind of a bad fall. They weren't totally sure about series availability going forward. Tyrone Taylor, came in and played and looked good, but that was certainly a situation where if they're not going to have Siri available, also it's going to be interesting on their depth. I don't know what their plan is with bringing back McNeil. We know that Henry Senga is going to be sent back down, which is sad because I do like Senga, but he'll be sent back down when Alvarez comes back up, and then they got to make a decision about what to do about Beatty and Acuna. I would assume Acuna is the guy who gets sent down, though I don't. It's really hard to say that Brett Beatty deserves to be on in the starting lineup right now, and he shouldn't be playing second or third. Really, that should be Vientos and should be Jeff McNeil when Jeff McNeil gets back. It will extend the lineup dramatically when they have them back. If you don't have, Luis Torrens, as good as Torrens has been, no one's really scared of Luis Torrens. You have Francisco Alvarez in there. You have another guy who was a big bopper, a really good bat in there, and you have McNeil. McNeil's a guy who can come up with base hits if he's right, which is kind of a hit or miss situation. But you have Jeff McNeil in there. I would be miles feel better about than having Jeff McNeil in there than Brett Beatty. Brett Beatty has been absolutely awful this season, and you got to look at it and say, all right, well, we have a situation here where we have a guy who is a veteran who has a lot of talent, as a former batting champ coming in here. It's going to extend the lineup, even if McNeil doesn't look like Jeff McNeil at the start of the season, whatever. We know McNeil looked much better in the second half of the season. If he has figured out his approach, he figured out what he wanted to do, which was not unlike Alonso. He was pulling the ball too much. It's another guy that really extends that line. I'm very interested to see when those two guys come back up and really start to see what this lineup can really do. But until then, I have genuine concern about them because I don't know if they'll be up by the end of next week and going into these series against the teams like the Phillies and then eventually the Diamondbacks. The Phillies series will be very important, not the least of which is I'm going to that series, so I'm going to be there. So I would like it if that team looked, we were getting a more complete version of that lineup, but a lineup that looked a little bit more, had a little bit more of an idea of what we wanted to do. So things to think about going forward. Other than that, let's hang on this what we can, which is that this was a good game. It was a fun win. I enjoyed the series. That ballpark's ridiculous, and I'm excited for them to go into Minnesota, keep up the momentum, and take that series as well, and then come back home and play some games against the Cardinals and Phillies, which would be good games as well. So looking forward to that. One other thing is that I wanted to point out that I gave my links at the beginning of the episode, but I also just recently created a Instagram account for my page where I'm going to be uploading clips from the podcasts into Reels and putting it on there, as well as on other social media. So I'll be putting that in there. So please look for that and please follow that page as well. That is Mike's METS Podcast, all one word, on Instagram. Please follow me on there as well as on my other socials. Thank you very much. I'm excited to be back and talking about the Mets. I'm hoping to keep this on a consistent schedule going forward. Of course, we have Easter next Sunday, so that may run into my recording plans, but hopefully I can record later that night after the Mets play. And we talk about what we see from the Mets from then going forward from there. So happy to be back in New York, and happy to see the Mets winning games again. Let's go Mets. Thank you for listening to Mike's METS podcast. If you haven't already, please follow us on Spotify and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Leave a like and a comment, it helps so much. Finally, please follow our Twitter and Blue Sky pages. You can find us at Twitter at Mike's METS Pod, all one word, and on Blue Sky at Mike's METS Podcast.bsky.social. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful day or evening, and let's go Mets.